All right, as promised, we are going to start with a Siyum on Masechta Bava Basara. The last Mishnah says, it's discussing a question of a orev, a person who guarantees a loan. And there is a machlokes. If a person guarantees a loan after the loan was already made, does that work or not? Is he actually obligated to pay as a guarantor or not? And Rabbi Shmuel says that he can collect from unencumbered property. He can say from property he still owns, that the orev still owns, that the guarantor still owns, but not from property that he sold because it was not included in the document of the loan, and a lien is only placed on land if it was included in the document, right? Now, he didn't sign into that document because he agreed to it afterwards. So obviously, it's only a personal obligation on himself and his property that he owns, but not on things that he owned before and sold. So that's Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. Ben Nana says no. You cannot collect neither from the sold properties nor from the property he owns. Because when he says I'm going to pay, it's just words. There's nothing to make that actually obligatory. It's like if I say I'm going to give you $100, $1,000, $1 million. So what? It's just words. There's no kinyan. There's nothing to make it actually real. Now the Gemara is going to explain that when you do it before the loan, so the fact that the loan was given based on your faith, so that the fact that you were trusted and the loan was given on your faith, it means that your words take effect anyway, because something changed because of what you said, the loan was given. But if you just say it afterwards, it's just like empty words. And he says, for example, somebody is choking somebody else in the marketplace because he wants the money back that is owed to him. And some other nice guy comes along and says, no, it's okay, don't kill him. I'll pay, it's okay. Does he have to pay? Banana says, of course not. I mean, he's just being nice. He doesn't want the guy to die. He doesn't really mean that he's going to pay. So Rabbi Shmuel, when he heard that svara, he said, wow, a person who wants to be wise, Yasik b'dinei mamanis, should be involved in learning about monetary affairs, about the halachas of choshen mishpat and so on. There's no greater craft in the Torah, no better part of the Torah in terms of the wisdom of the Torah than them. In Kamayna Naveh, it's like a spring that is flowing. A person who wants to learn in Imamanas, as Shimon Bananas. He should spend time learning with Shimon Bananas because of his brilliance. So the Gemara says, in terms of actual halacha, despite Shimon Bananas' brilliance, nevertheless, the Gemara finishes off. The hilchas of the halacha is, B'shas matan mois loy boi kinyan. At the time of the giving of the loan, if you say, I'm a guarantor, you don't have to make a kinyan, right? Pick up a handkerchief or do anything else. Just the fact that the money was given based on your word, that's enough to make it final. If you say it and the loan was already given, then it's just words, unless you made a kinyan. If you made a kinyan, you did something, some act of acquisition, like a handkerchief or whatever. Some say even signing a document. That's enough to make you obligated. Not like Bananas. Or maybe Bananas agrees with when there's a kinyan, whatever. Or if the Beis Din loy boy kinyan. Now, if the Beis Din assigns you to be a guarantor, then you don't have to make a kinyan, even if you come after the loan. The fact that the Beis Din trusts you and puts you down as an orev, so that gives you pleasure, and that itself makes it that you actually commit yourself fully. We will return to you Get Pashat, and we have completed Masechta Bava Basara. So, just an interesting point going back to Ben Nanas about Haroitz Lahachkim. Sorry, a person who wants to be involved in Dinam Amanis, Yeshamish es Shimon Ben Nanas. should spend time with Shimon ben Nanas. So what's so special about Shimon ben Nanas? So we see that Shimon ben Nanas had tremendous Yirah Shamayim, and by him, his Yirah Shamayim meant that even if it means you lose money over your Yirah Shamayim, that's okay. You have to lose money to have proper Yirah Shamayim. And we see that from a Gemara elsewhere where it says, there's a halacha that if an employee claims that he wasn't paid yet, and the employer claims that he paid him already, we trust the employee. Because the employer, he has, who knows how much he has on his head, bills and employees, and maybe he forgot. The employee has only one thing that he's looking for, that's it. So the chances are he's right. So we trust him, but he has to swear, so people shouldn't take advantage. Now, what if the Balabayas told him, you take, instead of taking money directly from me, you take from the storekeeper. And the storekeeper, he'll lay it out for me, and I'll pay him back. So now the storekeeper says that he paid him, and he wants money from the Balabayas. And in general, the storekeeper is believed, because the Balabayas instructed him to do so, didn't ask him for any proofs, so he's believed generally. The guy says, I didn't take. I didn't get any. And he's believed. But they're both contradictory. Right? So what do you do? So the Chachamim say, there's no choice. They both swear, and they both get. Even though it's impossible, but there's nothing to do. We have to trust the employee, because that's the Chachamim's rule. We have to trust the storekeeper, because that was the arrangement. They both swear and they both get. There are exceptions. This is an exception. No, by the storekeeper, it's not an exception, because the person told him to. So he put it on, he trusted him. He said, you say, I'm going to pay. So the person can do that to himself. The chiddush is that an employee doesn't have to bring a proof. That's a takanas chacham, special thing the chacham made to protect the employees. Anyway, the point is, Shimon ben Nanas says, no. How do we let two people make a shvuah if we know one of the shvuahs is a lie? In general, you have to let people make a shvuah. The Torah says so, even though it may or may not be a lie. But we can't let two people make a shvuah if it's definitely one of them is a lie. We can't do it. They both get money without swearing. Now, this seems very dangerous. I mean, people could take advantage. They just claim it and they cash in on it. Shimon ben Nanas says, better to lose money, or in this case, it's other people losing money. In general, better people should lose money rather than enter a situation of possibly doing a false shvuah, which we know the severity of a false shvuah is very, very severe. So that's the point. Shimon ben Nanas is of that opinion. So the point is, if you want to be involved in Dinah Mamonos, and we can expand that not just to learning about Dinah Mamonos. If you want to be involved in Dinah Mamonos, you want to get involved in business and so on, do it like Shimon ben Nanas' way. Meaning to say, make sure you have Yirah Shamayim, and that Yirah Shamayim is more important than your money, so that you're willing to lose money for the sake of making sure that you're not doing anything wrong. And this also has to do with his name, because Nanas is a midget. You should Nanas in Hebrew is a midget, yeah? You should be like a midget. You should be humble. It's okay. Let things pass. Don't always insist on having it your way. That's how it should be with the Dinah Mamonos. All right, so that's the fort. Haralach Masechta Bava Basara, Hadachalan, Daitan Alach Masechta Bava Basara, Daichalan Lenisna Sheminach, Masechta Bava Basara, Lenisna Shemizan, Midan, Ledalma, Hadim Lebal Medasi. Haralach Masechta Bava Basara, Hadachalan, Daitan Alach Masechta Bava Basara, Daichalan Lenisna Sheminach, Masechta Bava Basara, Daichalan Lebal Hadim Lebal Medasi. Haralach Masechta Bava Basara, Hadachalan, Daitan Alach Masechta Bava Basara, Daichalan Lenisna Sheminach, Masechta Bava Basara, Lenisna Sheminan, Lebal Hadim Lebal Medasi. That's what Nachman Dei Lehna Besenu. Should hate our schom and ascend Ben Mazal say Imanu Dam Abba. Chanina Bar Papa, Ram Bar Papa, Nachman Bar Papa, Choy Bar Papa, Abba Mar Bar Papa, Rafa Bar Papa, Racha Bar Papa, Such Bar Papa, Adabar Bar Papa, Dor Bar Papa. Have not in the Lehna Besenu schom Finu. Ufifi Isam Chapis Yisrael. Kulano. אנחנו Sam Chapis Yisrael Kulano Yirishmech Kulano Sarsach Mevi Tachlenu Sach Gilena Meli He liebe Chasam Chokach Man Leivish. Dailum Neshkach Kodach Kom Kisani Barachata Neil Ben Chokach Amen 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 Salawat. When nach nach der Leben Leben sind Samta Choken Mesh Beit Amarish Lesam Choken Mesh Kronis. Shon Mashkim Vehem Mashkim Anu Mashkim Levitar Vehem Mashkim Duvar Batail Anu Amelim Anu Amelim Makam Schar Vehem Amelim Makam Schar. Anu Rasim Vehem Rasim Anu Rasim Chayam Abavim Rasim Shachas Shnemar. Adel Toidim Shachas An Shidam Mem Yachtim Mem Yaftach. Rasul Fanach Arnei Lahai Kshim Satan Al Sam Secht Bava Basara. Can doesn't Haskell Masechta is swear Machem Simon, little made the Lamed from Haskell, come with Kulimis on the Salvi Hava. Schos color and Ram, some Necham Yamali, Lazarishly, some Toyer P. Pizarre is there Zavi ad Olam. The sky bonum is a beavis Alachatan Isach, Shapo Tishmar Lacha, Akitsoy Sechacha, Kivir, Yamecha, Isu Hoshnes Chaim, Urcham Minum said Miss Mother Shachor and the Izamitin or they were Samai Bashalam. All right, so Kaddish. Kadavis Kadash, Marba Madi Dihu Osel Khadat Lachayim Isai La Soka Yos and Lachai Amal when they carted Yushalayim Shlachla or Shachla Hechale Begava. Lemeka Pochona Necham and Ara La Sau Pochona Di Shmaya La Asiv Yamach Muchabichu Machusi Nikor Lias Mokana Mishiche. Hayek Nevech Machal Beis Yisrael Aglavs Makriv Amen. Yesh Marba Marach Lalam and La Yais Barach Shavach Tzrach Saves and Salam Salosh Made Kuchab Richu. Elam Kol Chasov Shasat Shasam Racham Asada Amyan Damav Amen. Yisrael Abana Talmudim Talmudim Samdim Commander Oscar Rice Di Rasa Kadin Di Khalasam Rasai Helen Ochin Shlom Rab Khin Khizrach Nachaynichin then the field of Kana Kana when is my Amen. Yishlam Ramash Chaim Table then Kosam Amen. It's such a level of Yasa Shalem, then I'll call Israel from Amen. Shkaya, I see you joined us for a bit of the Siyum. Do we need to answer Kaddish? Do we need to stand? You may answer Kaddish. And if you would normally stand, then why not? Now you cannot drink this plum wine, and I don't know how much you're missing out on it, but anyway, l'chaim, l'chaim. Should be zechet to be Messiah in many mesechtas and many areas of halacha, and more importantly, or equally importantly, we should review them and remember them. L'chaim. Anybody else? More plum wine? It's not coming back into my house. Please, pass it down.
So can we have wine if we're on the Siyum virtually?
If you're what?
If we're here for the Siyum on the internet, can we? That's
I'm not giving wine here either. I'm just giving plum wine, which is not real wine.
Oh, I see.
But I wouldn't give real wine because I saved the Siyum. I didn't really finish it now in the course of my normal learning. We finished with Bava Basara and Daf Yomi a week.
Oh, okay, that's a good point. Okay.
So I don't really serve wine. But anyway, you wouldn't do it over the internet anymore. Maybe if you had a sponsor, maybe. All right, Rafal, how did you get on there? I didn't invite you. You're always welcome, but how did you get the link? Yes, he sent them. Okay. Very good. All right. No further ado. Those that need to make a bracha right now will, but you're welcome to say it later also. Just don't forget. Okay. So we are learning Siman Shin Yud Ches. And last time, I believe we finished the Machaber and Ramah on Sif Dalid. Is that correct? Can anybody back me up on my recollection?
We did.
We did. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Alter Rebbe, which is Seif. Is it Yud? I think it's Yud. Who has it? Anybody has it there?
Yes, we're at Yud.
Yud, excellent.
Yeah.
All right, I just got to get it on my screen. Give me a moment, please. All right, here goes. Actually, Tess. Tess and the Alter Rebbe. Or did we say Tess already? Did we do Tess and the Alter Rebbe? Anybody remember? We did it already? Sure?
Yes. Yeah, we did it.
Okay, here we go. Thank you. Sif Yud. Special called Sorkoi. That which we said, that in Bishul Bishul Beyavish, if something is dry and cooked, there is no prohibition to reheat it, is only if it was fully cooked. Avokoshlin is Bashal called Sorkoi. Anything that Shin Yud Chetz if Yud. Okay? However, kosher is bashal called anything that is not fully cooked. Afilin is bashal kvar k'Michael ben Rusoi, even if it was cooked like Michael ben Rusoi, yesh b'im shum bishul, afilu bo'eder eseach, there is still an isser bishul, even if it is still hot. In other words, you took it off the blech, the plata, whatever. You served, you want to put it back, it's still hot. Nevertheless, there is bishul if it's not fully cooked. Even if it would cook anyway on its own, but you do something to hasten its cooking. For example, you mix it, that is also an isser d'oraisa. For that matter, covering it is also an isser, would be an isser d'oraisa if it's not fully cooked. Now, in terms of it being usser b'di'evet or not, so that it would seem that is dependent on a machlokes rishonim that we learned last week. Rabbi Yosef quoted two reasons why it's also to benefit from forbidden malacha on Shabbos. Is it shelo yehena mina iser? Simple. It was an iser done, you shouldn't benefit. Or is it a knas? It's a punishment. Did something wrong, punish you. Even if it was a shogeg, could be amazed next time, whatever, punishment. So if you say it's shelo yehena mina iser, so let's say you mix it and it got ready half an hour faster than it would have. So if you wait the half an hour, shelo yehena mina iser, you're not going to get benefit because by this time it would have cooked anyway. But if you say it's a knas, it's a punishment, the fact is you did the aveira with this food and the punishment is there. So regarding this machlokes, Bavadia's hachra was that if it's a shogig, you could be lenient. If it's a mazid, you should be strict. So it would seem that the same would apply in this case. I don't think he discusses this case in particular, but it would seem. I'm sorry? Yep. 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 Okay.
Now it's still in your hand, and Shabbos coming in, you're allowed to put it back on.
If it's not fully cooked, you can't put it on. What's the question?
It's your hand?
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
But if he's serving it, what
Hold on one second. Holding it in your hands is good for the conditions of chazara, but not for bishul.
No, it's, let's say you took it over the fire, it's in your hand.
I understand. That's good for conditions of chazara. So it shouldn't look like bishul.
You can put it back on.
It shouldn't look like bishul. Having it in your hand helps you that it shouldn't look like bishul. But if it's actually bishul, nothing's going to help you. You understand? If it's not fully cooked, it's actual bishul. No conditions will help. Yes?
If the person that served it, why do we determine it to be uncooked?
As they say in Yiddish, akasha af maisa. Have you ever heard that expression? You're asking a question on a story. Ronnie told us a story. The story was that it was not fully cooked. You want to ask him why he was serving it before it's fully cooked, you can ask him, but that's the story he told. I answered his question. His question was, if it's not fully cooked, what's the halacha? And that's the answer. Why would you serve it if it wasn't fully cooked? Some people like their meat rare. Some people like in their chicken soup that the carrots should be crunchy. You understand? Crunchy carrots are edible, but they're not fully cooked.
So is it considered cooking to another person?
Considered cooking until the average person considers it fully cooked. Not that the average person would eat it, that it's fully cooked. I don't have an exact measure for each food. Each food is different, and It is what it is.
What does it mean if the latter part of the
One second. Shmuel Leib is asking something. I'll get to you in 1 second. I'm sorry.
Food that you eat raw,
Yep.
and you put it in to cook, it doesn't have to be fully cooked, does it?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Even a food that you would eat raw, when it cooks, it's different than it when it's raw, and that is Torah level cooking. And until it's fully cooked as a cooked dish, it's still Torah level cooking. No question about it. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, what does it mean here? Afilu ba'odo roteach, because it's still hot. Afilu yizvasho me'alav ella she'osei daber makaro bishlo. So it's still hot, but it's
and it
like,
would have cooked on its own.
What
and
does
all
that
you're
mean?
doing is
It
making
cooks
it
on
cook faster.
By putting it back, it's going to cook faster?
No. Kegoin shemagise bekaf, the Alter Rebbe finishes. For example, you stir it with a spoon.
Oh, and then stir it with a spoon while it's on there, or even while it's off?
Certainly while it's on. We're going to see later that some say even when it's off, that
Okay.
stirring could help it cook.
All right,
But
thanks.
while it's on.
Okay.
I mean, we are strict about stirring it even when it's off, but it is a machlokes. Okay. Yud Aleph. Kav shel yavesh. She'ein b'roit of klal. A dry dish. Oh, by the way, just to go back to Yud for a second, a person who does cook something that is not yet fully cooked but is kamach ben rusoi, we did mention, I just want to repeat, that it is a machlokes if it's d'oraisa or d'rabbanan. I mean, some say it's not even forbidden. The Rashba says, no problem. L'chatchila, it's allowed. Ein bishul achar bishul. If you cooked it, you can't cook it again. That's it. But we said the Rambam holds that it is bishul, and that the way that Taz understood the tour is that it's bishul midirabbanan. Alter Rebbe doesn't say who he's going like, but it's definitely forbidden.
So
Yes.
if it changes, if it gets better, why is it different than the carrot that gets better? Changes its flavor, state, however.
So that's a good question. What's the difference between taking it from machal ben drusoi to fully cooked and then taking it from fully cooked to better, which is the whole concept of metztamak v'yafaloy, of making it taste better? So the answer is that when it comes to the melachas on Shabbos, it's only melechas machshavas asur Torah. The Torah forbids something that is considered important. So the change from raw to cooked is of course important. The change from half cooked to fully cooked is considered important. But the change from fully cooked to better is not considered important. Just like, for example, the fact that we say that when it's dry and you're reheating it is not cooking at all, not at all, according to all opinions, right? This whole thing about half to fully, we said, is different opinions. But reheating it, if it's fully cooked, is for sure allowed. Even though a lot of people would prefer, I mean, you want a hot piece of kugel or do you want a cold piece of kugel? I mean, it depends on the type of kugel. But generally, people would prefer it hot. No, the Chachamim said that's not considered cooking. Tastes better. Okay, not everything that tastes better is considered cooking. So that's what it is, same thing.
How do you explain the vegetables?
What do you mean?
Vegetables are dry and they only get better. They change their state. You can eat a carrot raw, you can eat it cooked.
Right, but when it's cooked, it's different than when it's raw. It's not just that it tastes better, it's cooked. You understand? The fact that it tastes better in and of itself doesn't make it forbidden. The fact that it's going from raw to cooked is what cooked is the issue.
What determines vegetables other than something that's spicy cooked? I don't think we ever talked about that.
I don't understand your question. There is no difference whether it's a vegetable or anything else. A vegetable is just an example. Cooking applies to everything. I'm just saying it, but it doesn't make a difference if it's a vegetable or a fruit or a edible mineral.
Wouldn't a vegetable be cooked? I mean, what's ever a cooked vegetable? You can cook an onion.
You can cook an onion. You can cook a carrot. Every vegetable is a cookable vegetable. Some vegetables aren't so good when they're cooked. There's no such thing as a vegetable that doesn't change in its taste. It doesn't just get softer. It tastes different. Okay. something dry that has no liquid in it at all. Okay, we're not going to get into it today, but one day we do have to get into the different opinions about what is considered dry. The Alter Rebbe defines it as has no liquid at all. Maybe tomorrow we'll go back and review the different opinions about that. But in any case, for now, let's just continue. If it was fully cooked, there is no bishul. Even if it was fully, completely cooled off. You're allowed to even soak it in a kli rishon, which is hot, even if that is going to dissolve it and it's going to turn back into a liquid. Here. It's dry now. You have a piece of chicken. It's dry now. It has a bit of, congealed gravy on it. You're going to put it into the chicken soup. It's going to dissolve. That gravy is going to dissolve. It's going to become liquid. Now, Alter Rebbe paskins, like most Rishonim, that ein bo bishul acha bishul. We go by the way it is now, at this moment. Right now, it's dry. We consider it dry. Is going to become wet as, a few seconds after it goes in. That's okay. We don't care about that. You didn't discuss Klisheni yet. Why are you asking now? I mean, we'll get to it. Well, what's your question? Oh, because what you're saying, if it's ein b'bishul acha bishul, because the issue with croutons is that they're usually baked and not cooked, and there might be bishul after afiyah. Bread is also baked. Baked means you bake it without liquid. I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna see about that.
Is there an amount of how much solid liquid that will change into liquid eventually? You got a Siyum of that?
Even if the whole thing changes into liquid, like sugar. The minute you put sugar into the klisheni, it becomes a liquid. No, it doesn't caramelize. It just turns into a liquid. Sorry? Soluble, exactly. Sorry. Klisheni is not a chiddush. Kli rishon. I mean, we'll discuss, maybe there's room for lenient, for strictness. But based on what it says here, you could put it into Kli Rishon. Off the fire. Never on the fire, because that's chazor. That's a chazor issue. You can't put something on the fire unless you have the conditions. Sorry? Salt in a Kli Rishon. So most salt that we have today is cooked, although it's not so simple. It depends on the salt. The place can say. But if it was cooked, based on what it says here, it should be okay. However, there is a strict opinion that the Alter Rebbe is going to quote later, and that is the Mordechai. And the Mordechai holds that we don't go by the fact that it's dry now. We go by the fact that it becomes liquid, and therefore it's considered already liquid, and therefore, yesh bishul acha bishul. Of course. What do you put salt?
I don't use salt. So
Try it one time.
Do we say that salt becomes liquid or it just dissolves?
Just 1 second. That's what's called becomes liquid in Torah language. If it dissolves and you can't see it and it's liquid, that's called liquid. One second. I just want to explain. Take chicken soup, not on Shabbos, which is complicated. Sunday night after the 9 days, chicken soup, and put salt in it. You see it dissolves. There's no pieces of salt in the bottom. It becomes liquid. Yes? Yeah, that's what happens. So the Mordechai holds that we go by the fact that it's going to become liquid. We consider it already liquid. And therefore, yesh bishul acha bishul balach. And therefore, he says not to put salt, even in a klisheni. Why not a klisheni? We'll see later. But I'm saying he says not to put salt in a klisheni. Now that Mordechai would be strict here too. You understand? And he would say anything that becomes a liquid is already considered a liquid. Sugar too, absolutely. According to the Mordechai, you cannot put sugar in a kli rishon. You cannot even pour onto it from a kli rishon, because the kli rishon we consider may cook up to a peel's depth, as we're going to see. Only a kli sheni. Kli sheni, why, we're going to see later, but not into a kli rishon or pouring onto it from a kli rishon. Question, yes, sorry.
So I want to understand that if you have a plate of chicken,
Yeah.
right, dry, but you always have some kind of liquid or something around that.
Yeah.
You can warm it?
No. According to the Alter Rebbe, you cannot warm it, even not in a way that looks like cooking, even on top of another pan, because it's going to become a liquid.
Even this little bit?
Even a little bit.
Okay. Put it in the soup.
That's what I said, but now I'm revising what I said. And I'm telling you that that's only according to the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch. However, in the Siddur, which he wrote after the Shulchan Aruch, he writes, I don't have it in front of me. Anybody have it? You have it, yeah. Just pass the Shulchan Aruch, please. Thank you. In the Siddur, he writes something called Hilchasa Rabsa L'Shabsa, very important halachas for Shabbos. And there he takes back some of the things he wrote in the Shulchan Aruch, and he is more strict in all of those three. And here they are. Or here's the one that's relevant for us. Afapi she'ein bishul acha bishul b'davar yavish. Here. Even though there is no bishul after bishul with something dry, if some of it is going to dissolve, even ktsas, you understand, even a little bit of it, yesh b'mishum bishul acha bishul, it is considered bishul acha bishul, b'lachluchas amachoy, because of the liquid that will dissolve. If it's yatz lettuce. And therefore, you have to be very careful. It talks exactly about this case. To not heat roasted or cooked chicken if the gravy that gets dissolved will become yatzaleres because of the possible iser skila and kares. This is all based on the Mordechai. He's being strict like the Mordechai's opinion that says you go by the fact that it's going to become liquid, consider it already liquid. You should not pour from a kli rishon onto sugar. Because the sugar is going to dissolve, you have a bishul issue. You should not be lenient even with our salt. Even though it was cooked first, because it dissolves, you should not be more lenient more than their salt. Based on what it says in Shulchan Aruch, that with salt you should be strict even in a kli sheni, and that it's good to be strict. So therefore, even our salt that is already cooked, the same thing applies. Okay, for your information, the Mishnah Berurah is lenient about this question. The Mishnah Berurah goes like the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch, not like the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur, like most Rishonim, not like the Mordechai, who says that you go by the way it is now, not by what it's going to become. And that has a lot of practical application in terms of sugar, in terms of salt, in terms of coffee, in terms of, the gravy, anything like that. Very, very practical applications to this. Yosef says, does the Chumrah Mordechai work the other way also? Example, you cannot take the gravy off the blech because it will congeal and become solid. You can't put sugar in coffee on Shabbos. Who says you can't put sugar in coffee on Shabbos? You can't put it in a kli rishon, and you can't pour on it from a kli rishon. Who says you can't put it in a kli sheni? On the contrary, I just read the Alter Rebbe, you can put it in a kli sheni, no problem. That's too early, okay. Okay, can you take the gravy off the blech because it will congeal and become solid? So congealing is actually no bishul issue. There's nothing wrong with congealing something on Shabbos, right? What's the issue? Sorry?
You're going to dissolve it. It's part of
There is an issue. There is an issue to dissolve liquids and turn them into solids. If it's a question of moilid, if that's considered like moilid. So you're asking, does it apply in the reverse? Does it apply in taking a liquid and turning it into a solid?
If that's your purpose of doing it.
When you put it in the refrigerator, it's going to happen anyways.
Like the ice cube. Ice cube is a machlokes, by the way. Not everybody agrees that it's aser. The Shabiner Rav held that it was aser, but many held that it's mutter to make ice on Shabbos. And I have to remember what the issue was. There's different opinions about why moilid, why making a solid into a liquid is moilid, and some of them would not apply, but some of them do apply. In terms of the fact that it appears to be something new, that's where you could argue about it. I mean, it definitely is not aser because everybody does it, and it's clearly not aser. But we have to revisit that when we get to the end of the Siman when we talk about moilid. Please remember and remind me. All right.
He wants to know if you can make snow cones on Shabbos.
I mean, if you already have the ice, what do? Just add the sugar? Why not? Go for it.
That's the problem. The ice has to be crushed.
Just don't tell your wife. I'm sure she won't. She would not approve. All right. We continue and we say, if it's something dry that was not cooked before Shabbos, oh, you know what? Actually, before we continue, I do want to it's kind of not so negay, it's not so important, but it's just something interesting. The primary example of Ein Bishul Acha Bishul B'Yavesh is the Tarnagolta de Rav Abba, is the chicken of Rav Abba, a particular kind of chicken that they used to cook and cook and cook, and eventually it would dissolve into the liquid. Yeah.
When you say cook, they would just continually cooking or recooking?
I think it was recooking.
So then
Recooking. So that's the example that the Gemara gives on Kuf Mem Hey Beis, that it's Ein Bishul Acha Bishul. So because it eventually does liquefy, so that's the source of those that say that it makes no difference if it liquefies. We go by the way it is now. We don't care about what it's going to become. So how does the Mordechai explain that Gemara? The Gemara talks about this chicken, and it says that even though it liquefies, it's okay. So the Mordechai will explain that is because it becomes Yad Seledes Boy before it liquefies. Before it liquefies. It becomes Yad Seledes Boy as a solid, and then it liquefies and it becomes a liquid. Liquefies, it becomes names. So when it's a liquid, it's already Yad Seledes Boy. You're not cooking a liquid into Yad Seledes Boy. It comes into existence as a liquid that's already Yad Seledes Boy. So you didn't cook a liquid. The liquids that become liquid immediately as soon as you put them in, salt, sugar, all those things. So that's the issue, that perhaps it becomes liquid immediately and then turns into Yad Seledes Boy. That's the difference. Okay. If you are taking something that was dry, not cooked, you cannot put it into hot water on Shabbos, even if it does not liquefy at all. Shoba Kli Rishon Chayev. If you put it into a Kli Rishon, even off the fire, that is Chayev. Why are you Chayev off the fire?
It's soft.
Sorry?
It's soft.
It can cook off the fire. Not just get soft, it can actually cook off the fire. If you take eggs and you put them into, the truth is eggs can cook easily, maybe even with the shani. But whatever. If you take boiling water off the fire, just now boiled, there are plenty of foods, if you put them in there, it'll cook.
Awesome.
Exactly. That is called toldos, or the secondary heat of fire. And that is a Torah level violation.
Because it's not interrupt, but because it's changing its state, or because we consider it cooking?
We consider actual cooking. Cooking with a secondary heat of fire is considered actual cooking. Uvechli sheni, if it's in a kli sheni, asur l'shroitzim ediris seifrim, ebnei shenir kevavashal. You are not allowed to soak it midirabanan because it appears to be cooking. We discussed this yesterday. And one of the answers of Tosfos holds that soaking something in a kli sheni appears to be cooking. And this was based on the Mishnah. The Mishnah said as follows. Just quote it so we have it clear. I think it's Daf Lamed Tes, Daf Mem, in Shabbos. Give me a moment, I'll bring it up. Okay. It's brought in Lamed Tes Amud Aleph. It's actually a Mishnah in Kuf Mem Hey, but it's brought in Lamed Tes 39a. Kol shebo b'chamen l'ifnei Shabbos, shur noise b'chamen b'Shabbos. Anything that was already put into hot water before Shabbos, you can put it back into hot water on Shabbos. Ein bishul achar bishul. We mentioned this last week. Kol shelo b'chamen l'ifnei Shabbos. Whatever you did not put into hot water before Shabbos, Madichin oisei b'chamen. You can pour hot water over it.
Even when you put it in the first line before Shabbos, it didn't cook.
That's a machlokes. We mentioned that last week. That's a machlokes. The language of the Rambam is the same as the Gemara, which is you put it in, you can put it in again. Shulchan Aruch changes that language. And he says, no, if it was cooked before Shabbos. Because the Shulchan Aruch holds that if you soaked it but you didn't cook it completely, we're concerned that maybe you'll successfully continue to cook it if you put it in again. So it has to actually be cooked. So Tosfos asks, how does the Gemara say, Madichin oise b'cham b'Shabbos, you can rinse it in hot water on Shabbos, if we know that Irui from a Kli Rishon can cook a peel's depth? How do we know that is another question. But that's based on a Gemara and Pesachim. We had it in Basar Chalav. When you pour something on something else, Adamaker lebala, as the bottom thing cools off the top thing, because we said the halacha is tatag, over the bottom thing overpowers the top thing. So the top thing does not cook the bottom thing. On the contrary, the bottom thing cools off the top thing. But Adamaker lebala, as it is cooling it off, it absorbs a little bit, up to a peel's depth. That's what it says there. So the Rabbeinu Tam holds that it actually cooks it. It doesn't just absorb it, it actually cooks it. So how could he say you're allowed to pour hot water on something on Shabbos, besides old salty fish and Spanish mackerel, things that are very easy to cook? So we'll discuss more. One second. Tosfos asks, how can you pour onto it if you're cooking a peel's depth? So again, according to some opinions, which is the Rashbam holds that pouring from a Kli Rishon does not cook at all. And the whole thing that the Gemara says there about it absorbing a peel's depth is not cooking. It's just absorbing, it's not cooking. So according to Rashbam, you have no problem. You can pour from a Kli Rishon, no problem. According to Rabbeinu Tam, you cannot pour from a Kli Rishon. So when it says that you can pour, it means from a Kli Sheni. Kli Rishon not. Kli Sheni, yes. So when it says that you cannot soak, you can only pour, that's the Kli Sheni.
Is that what the Rashbam is saying? You can only pour from a Kli Sheni or even a Kli Rishon?
That's Rabbeinu Tam.
No, Rabbeinu Tam says you can't pour from a Kli Rishon.
Exactly, but in Tam says you cannot pour from a Kli Rishon, and therefore,
and what about the Rashbam?
Rashbam says you may pour from a Kli Rishon.
Oh.
We don't paskin like the Rashbam in Hilchos Shabbos. We are strict because Shabbos is a very strict halacha, and we're strict. But that's the Rashbam's opinion. False question, Rabbi. Schnitzel isn't something with any sauce. If it has gravy or sauce, even a little, I would understand. But schnitzel is dry. Out there says it has a little bit of water. What? If the schnitzel is dry, then it's dry. So what's the problem? Who said schnitzel has water?
The chicken absorbs water and it becomes soft again.
It has a little bit of oil.
If you take hard chicken and you put water in it, it becomes super soft.
I don't know about soft. Soft is soft. Liquid is liquid. Rafael, speak.
Hi, sorry. The question was by, I believe, Cohen, David Daniel Cohen, if you can put schnitzel on the plata on Shabbat.
Putting something directly on the plata is a separate question. Does that look like cooking or not? But if you say that it doesn't, so it depends if the schnitzel is defined as dry or not. Alter Rebbe says that it cannot have any liquid at all. And even though he doesn't give this definition in the Alter Rebbe, but Rabbi Farkash understands that the definition is if you touch it with one hand, and then you put that hand on your other hand, will there be liquid on your other hand? Toifeach amanas lahatfiach, which he says is a halachic standard of wet in other areas. So he applies that here also. If it's tefeach amanas lahatfiach, he says it's considered wet. If it's not, it's considered dry. So that's the test. If your schnitzel is dry by that standard, then it's okay. If not, then not.
What if the
inside is not an issue? It's only the surface.
So frying it in oil, would that be dependent on how much oil you fried it and how much stuck inside? Or
we don't care about
is that something that's already?
We don't care about the inside. It's only about the surface.
No, what I'm saying is that touching a piece of schnitzel is going to get your hand greasy, but it's not going to get it wet. It's going to get it like
wet. Oil is considered wet. Oil is wet. Doesn't have to be water. It can be oil. I do want to say though that there is another issue with heating up schnitzel. By the way, schnitzel that was fried, and you're now heating it up without liquid, might have an issue of afia achar bishul.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah, everybody says that it's okay.
Yeah, and so some others do as well, but not everybody agrees. I think the Chazon Ish also allows it, but it's not so simple. I just want to mention that is an issue. We're not going to get into it now because we haven't learned that sugya yet. Yes? No? Okay. We continue and we say...
Can I interrupt one more time? I apologize. Since I'm not there, okay, so like what would be, I thought the classic cases of dry food would be rice or schnitzel, but if I touch my rice, my hands will also become greasy.
Yeah, honestly, we don't heat up anything in my house besides challah. Challah is dry. Other things are hard to find. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're hard to find. And, what's the big deal to have cold schnitzel? I mean, there's no problem. Ketchup, whatever. That's what we do.
Is there another definition by anyone of what's considered wet?
There are other definitions. There's the Minchas Kohen, who's very lenient, and there's the Mishnah Berurah, who is somewhat lenient. But we're not going to do that today, especially because I didn't prepare that sugya. Mirza Hashem will get to it tomorrow. All right?
Okay, thank you.
All I mentioned today is Alter Rebbe's opinion. We'll get to the other opinions tomorrow. Mirza Hashem.
Back to just that liquefied chicken.
Yep.
Is it the fact that it's softening all the time, or does it have to get to the point that it's completely liquid before it's considered bishul after bishul?
I mean, in the way the Mefarshim explain that why that case is permissible is because it reaches Yad Seleda's boy before it liquefies. How do you define liquefying? I don't know exactly.
Because that could apply to a lot of other foods because they change texture, they could soften as they're being heated as well. So is it the liquid aspect that makes
it? It is a liquid aspect. How exactly do you define that when it's gradual? It's hard to define the moment. I don't know. Okay, we continue and we say, okay. Over cliche. Okay, so this opinion is the opinion of Tosfos, of one of the answers of Tosfos, that it looks like cooking. There is another answer of Tosfos, according to which, like we said before, it's no problem to do it in a cliche. And that opinion is quoted later by the Mechaber. But for now, he says it's a problem. It's not like spices. You're allowed to put spices in the klisheni, as we're going to explain later. That's clear in the Gemara. Off the fire. Klisheni is not only off the fire, it's the second utensil. No. You took your cholent off the fire, you served it onto a plate. It's a klisheni. And now you want to put some pepper on it. Salt is a little bit more complicated. We're going to get to it. But now you want to put pepper on it. No problem. That's the halacha in Shulchan Aruch and in the Gemara. It's okay. So now, if klisheni is forbidden, because it looks like cooking, so how does the Gemara say klisheni eino mevashel? I mean, that's the language of the Gemara. Klisheni eino mevashel. Klisheni does not cook. So you could say, well, maybe it doesn't actually cook, but it looks like cooking. No, but the Gemara actually paskins. You can put you can put spices in the klisheni. Liquids also, we're going to get to that later. But for now, he's asking about spices. Why is it that you're allowed to put spices in the klisheni if it looks like cooking? The answer is simple. Spices, they don't look like you're cooking. They look like you're seasoning the dish. If you would ask anybody, even in a kli rishon, even on the fire, if I open up the top of my soup and I put some pepper into that soup, would anybody say I'm cooking the pepper? No, I'm seasoning the soup. Now,
usually when you're seasoning, it's time when you cook.
Okay, because it spreads out better. The flavor spreads out better. That's true. But nobody thinks about that.
If you see open a pot and you cook, it's when you cook it.
I understand, but nobody considers it an act of cooking. You're right, it is cooking, but nobody thinks about it as cooking. People think about it as flavoring. I'm not saying it's not cooking. In a kli rishon, it is cooking. Because it's cooking, because you're taking raw pepper and you're cooking it, obviously, but it doesn't look like cooking. So on the kli rishon, you can't do it because it's actually cooking. But in the kli sheni, it's not actually cooking, and it doesn't look like cooking. It looks like flavoring. So therefore, it's allowed. That's the idea. No? Shmuel disagrees. Go ahead. What do you say? No question. Okay, we continue and we say, the same thing, anything that adds flavor to a dish, for example, garlic or onion, is like a tavlin. You could put them in a klisheni. Even though it is yatsa lettuce. Some are not sure about an onion, and they say maybe it does cook in a klisheni. Calls manshi as long as it is hot. And the minhag is to be lenient. Okay, so I just want to tell you that this is machlokes Taz and Magen Avram. The Magen Avram says that onions are not a problem in a klisheni. He considers that them the same as other spices. He doesn't consider onion a food, he considers it a spice, because it's mostly used to flavor the dish. The Taz says no, it is considered a food, and therefore it is asur in a klisheni. And there are two reasons that are given for the Taz. One, the Taz himself says, and that is, we see for ourselves that the flavor of an onion changes in a klisheni, and it becomes sweet, just from being put in a klisheni. So even though you could argue that it should be like a spice, but the fact is, we see that it's not. The fact is, we see it cooks, so we strict. Others say, I saw quoted in Menigris Moshe, a different svara. I don't know if he's putting into the Taz or if he's just saying his own svara. Didn't actually look it up, but he says a svara that people eat the onion as a food, even if its main function is to flavor. You put onion in the soup. Your main intention is to flavor the soup, but people actually eat the onion as a food within the soup. Some people like the onion, but that doesn't happen with the pepper. It doesn't happen with the cumin or with the dill or anything else like that. You know what I mean? You don't take out the pepper because you don't, but I'm saying if you could, you would. Like some people put in the whole peppercorn in. You don't eat the peppercorn. It's there just to flavor. It's not there for eating. But the onion is there for eating, so therefore maybe we should consider it like a food. That's the argument Rav Moshe makes. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe says the minhag is to be lenient, like the Magen Avram, to consider onion a spice. V'yesh matirin b'chol davar yavesh elenis bashal l'shroisa b'klisheni sheyatz elenis bay yesh la'achman b'zek svar rishon. Some are lenient. Like we said, according to one of the answers of Tosfos, there's no issue with the klisheni. No issue. Doesn't look like cooking. It's not cooking. Go right ahead. However, the halacha is we should be strict like the first opinion and not put something in a klisheni. Besides, as the Alter Rebbe said, besides spices, and as we're going to see later, liquids are also, we're lenient with liquids also. However, you are allowed to pour on a klisheni, from a klisheni, that is still hot, on anything dry that was not cooked. Kli rishon, we're strict. Irui from kli rishon, pouring from kli rishon, he didn't say yet, but we're going to see later, we're also strict. We say it cooks like a kadei kliba appeals depth. Klisheni looks like cooking. It's getting more and more lenient, notice. Pouring from a klisheni, go right ahead. It's no problem. Doesn't look like cooking, because you're not really putting it into it. And it doesn't also actually cook, because it's not connected to pouring from a kli rishon, because it's coming from a kli rishon. It has some of the properties of a kli rishon, according to Ben Tam, and it can still cook. Pouring from a kli rishon, it doesn't have those properties. No problem. Chutz, with the following exceptions: mimin dag shenikra kuyus ispanin, from the type of fish that is called kuyus ispanin, Spanish mackerel, umliach hayashan, and old salted food, hana basar dag maluach shal shana sha'avra, salted meat or fish from last year. She'elu einam tzrichim bishul ma'at, they only need a small amount of cooking. V'irizog mar melechas bishulam, and this pouring finishes off their cooking. V'chayav mishum mavashal, and you're chayav for cooking them. And you are allowed to soak them and rinse them off with cold water. Okay, so this is the concept of kalei habishul. Kalei Bishul means that we see that there are some things that cook very easily. And that's it. We're not going to be makhish the metzias. We're not going to deny the fact. The fact is that they cook, and they cook easily. So that's considered cooking. Again, because tuldas or you're chayiv. And as long as yasa let us by, it's hot. So it's being heated by the heat of the fire. Now, normal foods, so what? A bit of heat doesn't cook it. But these foods, they're very tender, and they're very soft, and it's easy to cook them. So that's cooking.
You're allowed to do it for L'Shem Chayla, correct?
Huh?
To cook L'Shem Chayla,
Sheyesh b'sakana. Sheyesh b'sakana, yes.
So let me ask you. Bava Basara, like what? Raw vegetables that it's hard.
What's your question in terms of what?
Basically, it's davar shalom mevushal.
Yes.
Not edible, it's muktzah. And now you go and you're turning it into something edible. So my question is, if let's say you're doing it and you had a big piece, you're allowed to eat the leftover of it from the chayre, based on the shchita that you shochet the whole cow, and you're allowed to eat part of the other cow.
Yeah, that's not about Bishul. That's not about Bishul.
Something was muktzah, because now we can't.
That's not about Bishul. That's not about Bishul. We learned it.
I said based on it was muktzah, now it's become something edible.
Yeah, but you can't eat it. We said if your person cooked for a chayl, nobody else can eat from it, because otherwise we're afraid he may add for the non-chayl.
One piece.
Doesn't make a difference. Even if this time he didn't add, next time he may add. If another Jew will eat the leftovers, next time he may add. Not after Shabbos, on Shabbos. Next time he cooks for a sick person on Shabbos, he may add for the not sick person. He thinks it's no big deal. I'm cooking anyway. It's a big deal. You don't have to throw it away after Shabbos.
But if you cook for a sick person, you have to throw it away after Shabbos.
Not at all.
Cook for the sick person after Shabbos.
No, not at all. That's if the goy cooks for the sick person. After Shabbos, it becomes bishalak. Not if the Jew cooks for him. If he's sick, if he's mortally ill. As far as muktzah is concerned, you're right. Muktzah itself is not an issue, because some things' status could change on Shabbos from muktzah to non-muktzah, unless it was dechoy b'yadayim before Shabbos, unless you actively pushed it away before Shabbos. Just the fact that it's muktzah, because it happens to be muktzah, but you didn't make it muktzah, that could change on Shabbos. So yeah, the fact that it's now an edible food means it's not muktzah, but a Jew still can eat it because of the gzeira that otherwise somebody may add for him. Okay. V'chein kol davar kasha shaloi nizbashal shein orei la'achila kimel deishriya ardacha b'chamen. So to any hard thing that was not cooked, that is only fit for eating, if you soak it or rinse it in hot water, if you rinse it even a klisheni, or you rinsed it off even from a klisheni, but became fit for eating, that is considered bishul. Okay, v'chein kol davar. This is a big chiddush coming up in this last little bit of the Alter Rebbe. Listen carefully. Anything that is not cooked, which is very salty, and it's only fit for eating by soaking it or rinsing it in hot water. If you rinse it or soaked it in hot water, it's chayiv. You can rinse it or soak it in cold water. Even if it becomes fit for eating through this. Anything that is not food and you turn it into food is permissible on Shabbos. Okay, so here is the chiddush of that last case. Listen carefully. A person who has something that is very salty. Now, it's too salty to eat. But really, it's edible as far as it doesn't need further cooking. It doesn't need further cooking because the salt kind of prepared it for eating. Like, you can salt meat and make it edible. You can salt different things because salting has the properties of cooking. The problem is it's too salty. And by rinsing off the salt, you make it edible. Not because it's actually cooking it. It's just removing the salt. So if you rinse it off with cold water, it's not misaken. Because like the Alter Rebbe says, you're allowed to take something that's not food and turn it into food on Shabbos. That's a halacha.
So let me ask you, if it's not edible, the way it is, so what, you're not supposed to touch it, it's not edible.
No, if there's a permissible way to make it edible, why is it muktzah? It's a permissible way to make it edible. Understand? It's not muktzah, you could make it edible. Something that you cannot make edible, a raw potato, that's muktzah. There's no way to use it. But something you could make edible in a permissible way, that shouldn't be muktzah. So for example, in Shin Chav Dalet, he talks about a nevela, a dead animal. You cannot feed a whole dead animal to the dogs. I mean, to the wolves, yes. But a dog is not going to take a bite out of a big carcass. They're not used to that. You have to cut it up for them. But the halacha is you're allowed to cut it up for them, for the dogs. I mean, it's an nevela. You can't cut it up for yourself. You could cut it up for the dogs. It's not considered a tikkun to make something into food on Shabbos. Right? Even though it's a question, why not? Why not? Yeah, makah b'patish, you're completing something.
Is that soaking for the dogs or just cutting it up?
Not if it's dog food. I mean, you could make it into dog food, just like we're saying now. Anything you could turn into something permissible should not be muktzah.
Oh, in other words, just by soaking it in water, that's permissible for a dog, or you can cut it up.
I don't know if soaking a dead animal is going to make it good for a dog. I think it's cutting up that's necessary.
Oh, okay.
They'll take a bite out of such a big piece.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So the same thing over here in terms of human beings. If you can do it in cold water, it's no problem. Because fixing something without cooking it and making it edible is permissible. This is following the opinions, which is the main halacha, that ein makah b'patish ba'oichlin. We don't apply the malacha of makah b'patish. Makah b'patish is the final hammer blow. That's when you fix something, you get it ready. You know what I mean? The final thing to get it ready is makah b'patish. So most poskim hold ein makah b'patish ba'oichlin. The Mishnah Berurah brings other opinions. We'll get to them tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. I have to remember all the things that we have to get to. But the Mishnah Berurah brings down those opinions down, the Levush, the Chai Adam. But most poskim hold ein makah b'patish ba'oichlin. That malacha does not apply to food. So again, if you take very salty food, too salty to eat, and you rinse it off with cold water, that's not bishul. That's permissible. Tikkun oichel.
Does this last paragraph also talking about a kli sheni, or is it just a kli rishon for this really salty stuff?
Even a kli sheni. That's
okay.
Because even a kli sheni. Because the whole point is that it doesn't really need to be cooked. If it would really need to be cooked, a kli sheni wouldn't do it. You understand, for meat or whatever. But because the salt has already cured it, so to speak, and all you need is to get rid of the salt, that's easier to do. But if you're doing it with hot water, and the hot water is the only way you can remove this salt, that is considered an act of bishul. You understand? Preparing the food to get it ready for eating through heat, and that's the only way you can do it, that is also defined as bishul. It's chiddush. Sorry? Warm water less than Yad Seledes Boy? Yes. Less than Yad Seledes Boy is the same as cold, halachically. That's exactly the example we're talking about. No, No, that's exactly the example. The Alter Rebbe is saying this in continuation of the Kulyas Ispanin and all of those things that are easy to cook. And so to any of these other things, the same thing applies. Speaking of Yatsa Letters Boy, I did want to mention I did come across the Yalkut Yosef today. As far as the definition of Yatsa Letters Boy, which we said that there are different opinions about it. Rabbi Moshe says 110. Rav Shlomo Zalman says 115. But Bava Yosef says to be more strict. And he says even above 104 Fahrenheit, you should lechatchila consider to be Yatsa Letters Boy. But you could be lenient in a klisheni to go by the definition of the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai defines Yatsa Letters Boy as too hot to eat. It's too hot to eat, you wouldn't eat it because it's too hot, then it's Yatsa Letters Boy.
Yeah, but eventually it would cool off.
The average person. I'm talking about at this moment.
What was that temperature of Ravadia again? It was 114?
1 second, Daniel, 1 second. Ronnie's asking something. I'm sorry?
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
It doesn't matter if it's rishon, shlishi, as long as the water hot, they're allowed to.
If this is a food that is prepared for eating in that way, then it makes no difference if it's sheni, shlishi, revi. If it's Yatsa Letters Boy and it's making that food edible, that's considered cooking. Coffee is okay because of a confluence of factors. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's a few leniencies together. Starting with the fact that it's already baked. Some coffee is even cooked, not just baked. And then, even though it becomes liquid, but it starts as solid, it's a few factors put together, and we're going to get to it. Question, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, what was that temperature again you just mentioned from Bavadia?
Bavadia says 104.
Okay.
Okay. A few other points that I saw in the Yalkut Yosef that I do want to mention. This is a famous discussion. If you have a urn that has the stick that shows the water level, you know what I'm saying?
The glass one?
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about it. What do you do? Can you cover that? Like some kind of picture?
What is it? It's like my grandmother says that in the war, there was an absent-minded professor who he was afraid of being caught by the Germans. So when he would walk in the street, he would go like this. Because if you can't see them, they can't see him. So if you cover it, it's not there.
But many Jewish people, many religious people, they use it.
Okay, we have to understand, but covering it is not what it is. The question is, if you have a hot water urn and the urn has a little stick outside of the urn, which shows the water level. As the water level in the urn goes down, because they're connected on the bottom, so water always goes to the lowest point. So when the level in the urn goes down, level on the stick goes down, you know how much water is left. Understand? So the question is, if the stick is outside of the urn, maybe it's not Yatsa Letters Boy, and then as you empty the urn into your cup, that water is mixing with the water in the urn that is Yatsa Letters Boy, and it's cooking. It's connected on the bottom. It's connected on the bottom, but is it Yatsa Letters Boy? Sorry? If it's Yatsa Letters Boy, it's Yatsa Letters Boy. If it's not, it's not. No, it's outside. Of course, it's connected, but it's outside. It's definitely not as hot as inside. There's no question about it. So outside, it's a stick. Here's the urn. On the bottom of the urn is the element, heating it up. And on the side, there's water. Maybe it heats it up a little bit. Maybe that's what it's about. Maybe not.
Is there an issue of measuring?
No.
So what do you do?
No, you can't do an act of measuring on Shabbos. But if something is being measured, you can check it. If you have a thermostat outside of your window, you can look at it because you didn't take the measurement. You're just checking the measurement. I'm sorry?
Tachlis. What do you do?
Tachlis, what do you do? So first of all, you can buy one with a hechsher, and the rabbi checked it out and found that the water in the stick is Yatzelet boy, and therefore he said it's okay, it's no problem. You understand?
Usually the ones that have it inside. In other words,
Right, either inside or close enough or whatever, and he checked it out. Now, if it's not like that, so Rabbi Vadia actually says it's no problem. Why? Because he says that the chances are, at one point, all of the water was Yatzelet boy, because the water is constantly moving around. So at one point it was Yatzelet boy, and therefore it's Ein Bishul Achar Bishul. Now, the truth is that we hold Yesh Bishul Achar Bishul Belach, but right by liquids. But some people are lenient, and there's also a reason to be lenient because the fact that that water is heating up is not important to you. It's not your intention. It's called a psik reisha de lo nichale. When something happens automatically, generally something happens automatically. If you're happy about it, it's a problem. Even though eraisa, like when you open the refrigerator door, a light goes on, even though eraisa, that's a problem. Even though it's not your main intention, but you're happy when it happens. But over here, because you don't care about it, so there are some that are completely lenient, say it's no problem. We are strict, but together, since Ein Bishul Achar Bishul, even Belach, according to some opinions. And some people say, Psik reisha de lo nichale, when you do something in a secondary way and you don't care about it at all, some are lenient. So he says together, Sfek Sfeka, you can be lenient.
in these urns, the inside water, after it's boiled, it just stays on heat. How hot is it? It must be more than 110 degrees.
Of course it
must
is.
Be close to 200.
Yeah, of course it is.
So the chances are then that the little piece that's outside is going to be higher than 110.
If it is, you have no problem. But actually, if you want to know the truth, you ready for some truth?
Why not?
110 is Yatzelet boy lahachner, not lahaka. You need to say, we're not sure that 110 is Yatzelet boy. We think it might be. So don't bring something up to 110 because that might be Yatzelet boy.
Right.
But can you say that it is for sure to the extent that if it's 110, you could bring it up to 212? Not really. Reb Moshe says, for sure, Yatzelet is 160. So that's a whole nother level. It might not be 160. So that's why you need the rabbi's stamp of approval.
Is that why
Besides, you give a bit of parnasa on the side.
The kosher, some don't have to get it to the boil. They can kosher it at a lower temperature.
No,
No?
that's not true. Anything that was ever used in heat that was boiling has to be kosher with boiling. If it only absorbed with a lower temperature, then you can do that kosher. But if it absorbed even once with boiling water, you have to kosher it with boiling water. No question about it.
Rabbi Kluman prints when the municipal he says for Pesach, when you want to use towels, dish towels, you raise the hot water heater to 160. That's his number.
That's interesting.
You wash it in the hot wash at 160.
Interesting.
If you forget that that's hot for the house.
Interesting.
Forget to turn it back down. That's hot.
Yeah, that is very hot. All right, another issue that Bavadia brings up, which is something discussed by the Poskim. He brings many Poskim, as is his way. You had a tea. Shabbos morning, you got up early to learn some Chassidus, Baruch Hashem, made yourself a tea, klisheni, you had your tea essence, everything's good. Essence. Just for argument's sake. You want to use a tea bag? We'll get to that later. You didn't want to get involved in any machlokes, so you had your tea essence. Now, you used, in order to make the tea, you used a middle cup. So you do it in a kli shlishi, right? You took 1 cup out of the urn. That's your kli sheni. You pour it into the kli shlishi, and that's where you did your essence, your sugar, whatever, honey, whatever. Now, you want to go back and use this cup for your 2nd cup of tea. But it has some little droplets in it. Chava, you're going to throw it out. I mean, it's a waste of a cup. So, should you dry it? Maybe. Rabbi Vaya says you don't have to dry it. And he says a few different reasons. He says, first of all, again, some people say once liquid is cooked, it's cooked. Even liquids, like we said, some people say, even if it's cold. It's a machlokes, we're strict. But remember, there's one opinion that's lenient. Many opinions. But it's not the main halacha, but there are those opinions. And then the fact that it's a psik reisha d'lo nichale. You don't care about that drop. It's going to cook, obviously, but you don't care about it. And even if you say that psik reisha d'lo nichale is forbidden, right? But it's a very small amount. When it comes to cooking on Shabbos, in order to be chayev, in order to be liable on a Torah level, there are amounts for cooking, right? Generally, for liquid, it's a revius. For food, it's a gregorus, a certain amount, a dry date. This amount is so small, it's not chayev. Now, the truth is that you can't even do a malacha with a small amount. You can't cook, even one little raisin you can't cook, even if it's smaller. But that's because it has some importance. The drop has no importance. Nobody considers it to be anything. So therefore, maybe it's not even forbidden by Torah law. So with this all of these factors together, he says that it's okay. And he brings many other mefarshim that agree with him. On the other hand, some are strict. You can always find those that are strict, and so on and so forth. So if a person wants to be strict, he can dry out the cup.
What if you pour the coffee and you took too much water, too much hot water, and then you pour, and then you have a little bit left. So you throw it to the sink. So the same thing, you have water there on the sink all the time. Huh?
Yeah, but there you're pouring from a klisheni. That doesn't cook. Pouring from a klisheni onto other water doesn't cook. That's okay. All right. So, I have something else to share. It's a little bit involved, but I'm going to get it off my chest. Hope you forgive me. All right, you ready? It's easier to do this today than to save it for tomorrow. We're just going to wait. Tomorrow we'll discuss Afia Achar Bishul, Bishul Achar Afia. And what else we have to discuss? What else? Different definitions of liquid and solid, if it has a little bit of liquid. And what else? We just said we're going to discuss something else now. Sorry?
Coffee.
Besides that, what?
Coffee.
Did I say coffee?
Yeah, instant coffee.
Yeah, you said something about
Tomorrow? No. Not tomorrow.
So, later on, some other time.
No, what did I say we're going to explain?
Maybe the ice. With tea, I thought. Dry tea.
Oh, no. I was going to discuss Makabeh Patesh Boichlin. There are opinions that say that you cannot complete something and make it edible. I did want to discuss those opinions tomorrow. Okay, so in order to leave time for tomorrow, I'll discuss this issue now. The Alter Rebbe, in the next sif, is going to bring the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer Mimitz, Rabbi Eliezer of Metz, who wrote a sefer called Yereim. Rabbi Eliezer of Metz, in his sefer Yereim, is stricter even than Tosfos. Again, Tosfos says, according to one answer, that a kli sheni looks like cooking. It's not cooking, looks like cooking. The Yereim says, you know what? A kli sheni, it cooks some things. It cooks some things. For example, the Gemara says, according to one answer, that salt cooks even in a kli sheni. So, says Rabbi Eliezer of Metz, we don't know what else cooks in a kli sheni. We don't know. We know that spices don't, because the Gemara says they don't. We know that liquids don't, because the Gemara says they don't. We're going to discuss more about liquids later. But everything else, how do we know it doesn't cook in a kli sheni? So, we're strict. Walter was going to quote him later. So a kli sheni could even be a Torah violation. 3 opinions about a kli sheni. Take note. One opinion says, no problem. One of the answers in Tosfos. One opinion says, rabbinic level, looks like cooking. One opinion, the Yereim says, maybe it's actually cooking. We don't know, unless it's spices or liquids, maybe it's actually cooking. Okay. Why is it that the Alter Rebbe only brings that down by a kli sheni and not by pouring from a kli sheni? Does it apply to pouring from a kli sheni or not? Do we have to be strict and say, well, if you have to be strict and think that something in a kli sheni could cook, so maybe pouring from a kli sheni, maybe that could also cook. So therefore, just like in a kli sheni, we have to be strict and say, maybe something cooks. We don't know. We're not experts. Maybe pouring from a kli sheni, also we have to be worried that maybe things cook and we're not experts. So, I'm sorry?
Even rishon gonna be on the klipa. So what gonna be even rishon?
Right. So you're saying a Eruv from a kli sheni is less, it doesn't cook as much as a kli sheni, because it's less than a kli sheni, right? That's what you're saying. So the truth is that the Alter Rebbe here just says that you have to be strict by the things that are kalei habishul. Things like Spanish mackerel, like salted meat. And the simple reading of it is that it only applies to those things that you see actually cook in a kli sheni, pouring from a kli sheni. If you see that it cooks, fine. But if you're not sure, you don't have to be strict. Kli sheni, he says later, yeah, be strict. Maybe it cooks. We don't know. Pouring from a kli sheni, he seems to say, only these things. He doesn't expand it to include things that we're not sure about. And there is reason to differentiate as follows. Actually, kli sheni itself, it's easy to say what you were saying. Kli sheni is hotter than pouring from a kli sheni. However, interestingly, there are opinions that say that even a kli shlishi might cook. Even though we quoted the song from Moshe Yes last week, there ain't no bishul in a kli shlishi, his neshama should be in Gan Eden. Nevertheless, the Yereim himself says that just like you have to be strict in the kli sheni, that it may cook some things, same thing with the kli shlishi. There's no limit. As long as it's Yatsa Lettuce Boy, don't put anything raw in it, because maybe it cooks. We don't know. Now, the Alter Rebbe doesn't, by the way, the Pri Megadim argues. Pri Megadim says, nah, Kli Sheni is it. There's no such thing as a Kli Shlishi. And that's how Rav Moshe Feinstein paskins, which is where Moshe has got his song. Fair enough. It's a song according to the Igros Moshe. But not everybody agrees. Some are strict in the Kli Shlishi. The Alter Rebbe does not have a clarity. The Alter Rebbe stays open-ended. He doesn't discuss Kli Shlishi. So maybe yes, maybe no. So here's the thing.
What's the point of the number of scaling? You just focus on the temperature of the water. That's it.
Well, if you focus just on the temperature, then Kli Shlishi should be the same. Because in a Kli Sheni, we say, Yad let us boy cook some things, and we don't know what they are. So say the same thing in a Kli Shlishi. So that's what the Yereim says. That's what the Yereim says. The Pri Megadim will say, nah, it's not. I mean, it's only a chumrah. Kli Sheni doesn't really cook. Unless you see that it cooks. And the things that you're not sure about, okay, we'll be strict in the Kli Sheni because, that's pretty hot. Kli Shlishi, even though it's Yas Lettuce, but it's not so hot, we're not going to be strict. Again, it's just a chumrah. It's like an extra fence. How many fences can you make? That's the svor of the Pri Megadim. So, here's the thing. When I learned in Kollel many years ago, and we learned this, so Rav Deitch, my Rosh Kollel, said, listen, we don't know what the Alter Rebbe holds about a Kli Shlishi, but we know that pouring from a Kli Sheni is allowed, besides the things he says not, right? Because he says this and this not, and anything else that you see cooks. So the mashmos, the implication is that things that you don't see for a fact cooks, you're not sure, are okay. That's what he said then.
Based on this, it's not going to be more convenient to put stuff in the you put yourself in the Kli Shlishi and you cook in the Kli Sheni.
So that's what he said. That's what he said. That's what he said. And why? Why? And he explained why. Because generally the bottom wins. So the Kli Shlishi, the bottom thing is hot. Maybe you can cook the thing that comes into it. But if you're pouring something hot into something cold, the bottom wins. It doesn't cook. So that's why pouring from a Kli Sheni could be more lenient than even a Kli Shlishi. That's the whole thing. We had a whole shiur on it. It was wonderful. And based on this, there was a heter to even make tea pouring from a Kli Sheni. Because it doesn't cook, besides the things that we say it cooks. Anyway, we'll get more into that.
That was the Pri Megadim, you said?
The Pri Megadim says
that was the Pri Megadim?
Pri Megadim says the Kli Shlishi doesn't cook. So, but here's the thing. Later on, Rav Deitch retracted. And here's what he said, listen carefully. Just like the Yereim says to be strict because we don't know what cooks in a Kli Shlishi or Sheni, be strict. The Mordechai says, be strict in pouring from a Kli Sheni, because we don't know what cooks and what doesn't. So you'll say, well, that's the Mordechai, that's not the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe doesn't bring down the Mordechai. Okay, but listen to this. The Mordechai has the same Mishnah as we have. The Mishnah says, you could pour on anything besides these two things. So anything means anything. Why is the Mordechai concerned with things that are not listed in the Mishnah? So the Mordechai says no. Even though it says anything besides, it means anything besides these things and anything similar to it. And we don't know what's similar to it. So therefore we have to be strict with everything. So if that's how the Mordechai could learn Pshat in the Mishnah, maybe that's also the Pshat in the Alter Rebbe. We don't know. The whole, just explain, the whole point is that his whole proof that it's allowed to pour from a Kli Sheni was from this language. It says you could do it on anything besides these things and anything else you see that cooks. Okay, but we see that the Mordechai learned in those words that it could mean other things even though they're not listed and we don't know what those other things are. So you could say the same thing in the words of the Alter Rebbe, and therefore it's open-ended. He said it's not. There's no proof. There's no proof that it's forbidden, but there's no proof that it's permissible. And he now does not say it's mutter to make a tea bag from a klisheni, even to pour from a klisheni. And he says only to do it before Shabbos. Make the tea essence before Shabbos. Question?
To go back to the first thing we talked about vegetables that change status, how do we derive that? If we're not, the water started cold and it's never.
The water started cold. What does that mean?
I put a carrot in cold water with pasta in cold water and it changes its state.
That's not cooking. Hot water cooks, not cold water.
I thought you said that anything that changes its status of pasta is considered cooking.
No, in hot water, not in cold water.
So cold water is permissible.
Cold water is permissible. Yeah. We're going to discuss it further because it seems like you're changing it. Maybe why shouldn't that be considered makav patish, like completing something? Alter says clearly it's permissible. There are some that are strict. We'll discuss their opinion tomorrow. All right, my friends, thank you for your patience. And tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, I will do a Siyum Masechta Midas, which I only started the other day. So Hashem should give me time and energy to finish it, and I'll be able to do that tomorrow. Sorry?
But Sunday night.
Can hear you.
We're doing Siyum Sunday night too.
Tomorrow. I'm sorry, I'd like to do it in the beginning of this year.
Remember, you've been doing Sunday night too.
It'll be after Shkia.
Sunday night we're doing a class.
No, I just want to know, you're going to do it like before Shkia or after Shkia?
I don't know. By the time I get there, it'll be after Shkia, unless everybody comes on time. If you dafka won't, I'll wait till after Shkia. Mirz Hashem. You're welcome. Question?
So then could I later heat that pasta by putting it into a cholent or something like that?
No.
Once it's been cooked in cold water?
No, that's not called cooked. That's called prepared. That's like a raw carrot. It's edible, but it's not cooked. You understand?
But once the pasta is cooked,
It's not cooked. It's edible. If you make something edible with other means other than cooking, that's not called cooked. It's called edible.
so if I make it edible by softening it up and then
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. There's no cooking after cooking, but there is cooking after edible, just like a raw carrot is edible, but you can still cook it. So something was made edible with cold is not cooked. It's just edible.
What if I heat it with my foot on the plata?
Doesn't make a difference. If it was never heated yet and you're heating it now for the first time, it's not allowed. All right, my friends, good evening.
What are we doing next week?
Sunday night.
Next week, we are meeting on Sunday night in Mirz Hashem. I hope that's okay for you.
Probably. Okay, Sunday night only.
Sunday night only. Yeah, the other nights are off limits for learning.
Okay.
You here for the Siyum or for Ma'ariv? I'm sorry, I did it, but you can have some l'chaim and some grapes and some plum wine. I have plum wine.
Rabbi, are you doing a Siyum Sunday night too?
Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night I'm doing on Midas.
What time?
I was going to do it in the beginning. But actually, you know what? Maybe I'll do it at the end. Ronnie wants me to do it at the end. Should I do it at the end? Is that better for you? Or you'd have Meyer before anyway?
I got married before, but I'm just looking for
So I'll do it at the end. I'll do it at the end tomorrow night. Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Hey, thank you. Good night.
My pleasure. Good night.